I'd like to go straight down the line, just have everybody introduce themselves, talk about yourself, talk about your company, what you do.
I'm Schuyler Yost. I work for Quartet Health. It's a mental health technology company backed by Google Ventures and a few others. We are actually right down the street. We're 2.5 years old, and I've run recruiting for the company since the start, which has been a challenging but very fun endeavor. Met a lot of people. We're up to 140 people now, and continuing to grow.
Actually, could we turn down the speakers just a little bit? It's a lot of feedback. It's tough to... All right. So, quick question for my audience here. How many people have been on an interview and then never heard back? Gone to an interview and then never heard back. So why is that? Why do people not hear back? Like, what is the process there for when you guys meet someone in the office and then, like, what's supposed to happen next?
What's supposed to happen, but obviously doesn't always, is transparency and just level setting expectations on the process. I view it as a failure of myself or my team when we don't do that. We try to do that as little as possible, but obviously we're humans and mistakes happen. But we have it built into our process where within 24 hours of you coming in, we'll give you a call. We won't email, and we'll give you feedback, good and the bad. And even if we don't have a decision at that point in time, we'll at least give you a ring and say, here's kind of where we're at. So I just think if somebody's investing time with our company, we owe them transparency and strong communication. Doesn't always happen, but I don't know, maybe we need like a better ATS that just like bugs us every time.
What would be a good way to follow up and gently remind you that you're excited about the potential of working there?
For me, it's a simple nudge. It's an email ping. It's not being pushy necessarily. It's like I want somebody to also have an understanding of what's going on in my day, that we've got a lot of things going on as well and a lot of priorities that we're juggling. So if somebody just quickly reminds me, then I will absolutely give them the time. I would say that it's probably like subconscious. If somebody's rude and it's like, super angry at me that I haven't gotten back, like I'll probably be, probably won't be as likely.
So type in all caps.
Yeah. All caps, okay. A lot of exclamation points,
all right.
Emojis, all that.
What would be a good way to realize, like, what's the next step? So maybe I didn't hear back. I'm bugging you a little bit. Should I say, hey, let me know what's going on? Is there another interview? Is there always another interview? Like, what's the standard process of going down the line? I was speaking to a lady in here who said she was on like interview number 3, and then it kind of just like went silent. So like what's the standard process for how many interviews they should expect at each company or a staffing agency? Like what's the typical process here?
Recruiter screen, hiring manager screen, usually a coding test after that. And then the only place where it really deviates is we build in a values and culture interview where we basically have 4 company values. We have set questions to make sure that someone is a good fit with our values. And the final step is often it's with our VP of engineering, but it could be with the hiring manager. And we also make sure to build in like a lunch where the person can just interact with the team, and it's a two-way street. Like they've got to like our team, and the team's got to like them and enjoy spending time with them. I think to you kind of mentioned this in your in the question. I think the way to kind of understand that is like clarify up front when you're on that screen with the recruiter for the first time. Say, what's the process look like? How many steps can I expect? How many weeks does this typically take? Those are all questions that I'm fine answering. I think any recruiter's fine to clarify the process and set expectations so that they don't encounter any pain or miscommunication down the road.
So on the follow-up, just to kind of get back to that, because I always feel like a lot of things fail in the follow-up, right? A lot of deals, a lot of things don't happen because we weren't sure what was going to happen next. So skipping the whole all caps and emojis, if I were to write you an actual letter, like how long after the interview should I write this letter to you? How often should I annoy you? Like, is there a point between not annoying too much and like restraining order? Like, where's that sweet spot right in the middle?
I mean, it's rare that if you send me an email or two that I just won't respond, right? I get a lot of email traffic, but I don't get that much, and I don't just blatantly ignore people. So if somebody emails me, a few days after they come in, and then they don't hear back from me by the end of the week, like another ping is sufficient, and I guarantee I'll get back to them at that point.
What if I'm just an amazing developer, an amazing worker, but I don't have that passion? Like, which way do you go? Do you go with the person who's not going to crank out the code as fast, but loves the company, loves the industry, or someone who's like amazing, but really just doesn't care all that much?
It's a good question. We definitely have both, and both are totally fine. It's not like a prerequisite, to join our company that you have a family member that has a mental health condition. You might be really passionate about solving meaningful problems in a high growth environment. You might be really passionate about our tech stack. I think there's a lot of things that make people really successful at our company, and we don't want to be so narrow-minded that they have to have interface with this problem. But yeah, I would say that like a lot of our more successful people, even ones that aren't technically as skilled, just have the drive that gets them out of bed every morning, where they're like, hey, I'm solving a real issue, and it's amazing how much that will drive you.
So on the negative side, what do you see where people are just not necessarily, maybe they don't have the skill set, but what have people done on an interview that's really this is definitely not going to be a good fit? I'd love to hear just things maybe to avoid, pitfalls, like things maybe people say or people do, or something that they shouldn't do moving forward on any other interviews.
Being late to interviews, I would say. If you've got a great reason, obviously, we're humans and it happens, but a lot of people show up with no explanation, and that peeves us because we're busy too. I think sometimes people just don't, they're looking at every Series B tech company out there and they barely know anything about us, and that's a little frustrating. Also, I think give credit where credit's due. I think people go and do an interview and feel like they've got to sell themselves. And one of the red flags for us is if it's just, I did this, I did this, I did this. Almost everything you do in the workplace is a team effort. You should talk about your team and the way that you guys were able to work together to accomplish something meaningful. And if we just hear a bunch of I's for 30 minutes, that will typically rub me the wrong way. All
right, cool. So now I want to throw out one question. I know we have a mixture of folks in the audience here, and several of them are junior developers. The people have just graduated maybe a coding academy or college, and they're just getting their first job, and there's not a lot of history to talk about. So maybe they didn't have any developer jobs. Maybe they had other jobs in the past. Do you want to hear stuff that's completely outside of the industry that they're now going into? What should a very first interviewer, a job seeker for the first time, what should they be focusing on?
Yeah, I think it's how do you define relevant, right? I think thinking outside the box and coming up with examples, even if you don't have a ton of work experience, that shows creativity, resourcefulness, and I want to get to know you as a person as well. I want to hear about you and what really drives you and motivates you, and so I wouldn't be afraid to let that passion kind of shine through.
What else should they have ready? So here's my GitHub. What else should they have when they walk in that you think would be, not just junior developers, any developers, really beneficial to the interview?
Different side projects. If they're working on an app or they're a designer, I want to see the portfolio. I want to see stuff that they're doing outside of work hours that is shows what they're good at, what they're super excited about.
It varies for engineers, it varies for designers. For designers, it's very obvious. I'm gonna need to see your work, your portfolio. I need to see how you operate. Engineers, if you're interested in open source, if you speak at conferences, those are really interesting things to me and my team. At the same time, you don't have to spend all your time doing open source. But it is an opportunity. Show your GitHub account, show that you're doing things. And there are things unrelated to work that I care about: diversity, inclusion. So if I can tell that you care about that, or maybe you don't have a job but you're working to build a better environment or build a group around diversity, that's something that I care about, and that adds value to your background as well.
Before we get to, I want to have everybody shout out a job in a minute, but I want to just leave this with really one good piece of advice for the job seekers here in the audience. So we can just go down there. What's something that's really good that people should really just keep in mind and remember while they're interviewing?
Be prepared. we're in the digital age. There's a gazillion articles on our company, the people that work there, our culture. Like we have an engineering blog. There's just so much stuff out there, and the more you can just absorb, the more it's going to increase your chances that we'll consider you.
Just really quick, I just want to ask one more that you reminded me of. How many people typically apply for one job? How many people do you interview to fill one position?
Yeah, there's a massive range. I feel like there have been roles where we'll do hundreds of phone screens, at one extreme, and then there are other ones where, you might get lucky and talk to 10 people and bring 2 on site, and one of them gets an offer, and you close it in 3 weeks. Like, that's fantastic. But definitely, like, it runs the gamut.